where we are today, where we see money, we've just become accustomed to seeing a dollar bill and equating that to value, but that's a fairly recent concept, right? And so if you go back far enough, when people were transacting, that used to be based on gold, right? But then gold was not possible to really bring places easily, especially when these people were traveling across very long distances on boats and different things. And so that's when they basically created this whole concept of value being attached to something that is paper or tangible. It's basically like an IOU. If you go back far enough to what money was, it was basically like, I'm good for this. And then the bank would basically say, like, this person is good for this. And so I'm going to go trade this note around. And that's me transacting in terms of money. And that's one thing I think is really important for people to grasp is that money has always been fake, right? Like the concept of money is something that we've collectively created to try to push ourselves towards an outcome, right? Transacting for value. And originally, when it was back to gold, that was something that was tangible. And of course, the concept made sense, but the practicality was not there. And then if you go down the line, we've just been further evolving the concept that was started there. So I think that was an important thing that I wanted to mention. And then the banks obviously created these IOU things where people could go around and transact and trade those IOU things around. And then that's how we get banks. That's how we get the central bank.
Now, right, going from, we have obviously this, essentially what we like to look at money as is as a technology, right? It's a technology, it's a mode of communication of value. And
Yes, that's a
so,
great way to put it.
and so now we're at the point to where, okay, we're going to use gold. Okay, now we're going to use these currencies that represent gold that is deposited in a bank vault. Okay. And in the United States specifically, what happened is in around 1933, we had the end of the domestic gold standard. So once again, people would imagine you as a citizen, you have gold, you're going to deposit that at a bank and you're going to get notes back for that gold. Imagine, right? On a national level in the United States, that concept was ended on a national level, right? Because
Mhm.
also the central bank has a vault, right, with gold. And so the currency that they were issuing, right, is supposed to be backed by the gold that was in the vaults of the central banks or the country itself, right?
Totally.
So in 1933, FDR ended the domestic gold standard, prohibiting the private ownership of monetary gold and stopped redeeming dollars for gold inside the United States. Okay, so now the dollars of the US are not necessarily backed by gold for the citizens inside the country, but on a national, or excuse me, on an international level, there was still a gold standard in place where the value of gold was pegged to around like $35 an ounce, I think was the number. So moving forward, we get to 1971, and there's a whole story behind this around how essentially other governments had deposited gold in the United States. I think France was the one that really was kind of like pressing the US about this. They were like, hey, we want our gold back because you guys are doing some funny business with your currency. And the US was like, well, no. How about no? And a lot of people mark this as technically a default that happened in the United States, where essentially we've said, hey, actually, no, you can't get your gold back from us in exchange for the dollars that you hold. And so instead, we're just going to end the whole gold standard. We're just going to change the name of the game right now. And that was President Nixon in 71. And so he suspended the dollar's convertibility into gold to stop a run on gold reserves, because once France did it, everyone else is going to do it as well. And a little bit later, we had in 1976 what was called the Jamaica Accord. I actually didn't know that this is what it was called. I just found this as I was doing some research. And this was when it was actually made official in international law that we would end this global gold standard. And so this was done alongside with the IMF. Essentially, countries came together and said, all right, we're going to kind of just have this floating currency rate system that is not backed by any particular commodity and no other good, and rather just based upon the full faith and credit of whatever government is actually issuing that currency.
And that is a crazy concept. And it's what I find the most fascinating is whether by design or not, not many people understood this concept. And equally, how easy it is to make something a norm, right? Like this is something that people don't even ask where money comes from or why money has value. They just And I guess that's because they're so busy with their daily lives and trying to survive that they don't have the opportunity to stop and think about this stuff, which is why we created the show in the first place. But that is a wild concept where basically they're just saying, this has value because we say it does, and you're gonna have to go along with that.
Yeah, man, it's tough. Yeah, I feel like we've talked about this a lot, where it's just like, a couple guys came into a room, made some decisions, and now we have a system that doesn't work for everyone.
Did we explain what fiat means? Because that's a word that gets thrown around a lot in finance that people don't know.
Yeah, so the word fiat in this situation, it's actually a Latin word. It means, I believe, let it be so. It's kind of like the meaning in
No
Latin.
way.
Yeah, it's crazy. Um, so do you look it up real quick?
I'm trying to find fiat meaning Latin. All right. In Latin, yeah, let it be done or it shall be. That's crazy.
Yeah, so
That is wild.
so it comes down to the fact that it means that there's no particular reason or backing for these currencies. They don't necessarily stand for anything other than that someone said it is money, and
It
it
is
is.
because it is. The
Yeah,
concept is. That's insane.
exactly.